Hi everyone, and welcome to our lunchtime learning webinar on tackling inequalities fund learning mental health projects. Thank you ever so much for joining us this morning. It's lunchtime. We are going to be recording this webinar for people who couldn't make today to watch on our YouTube channel at a later date. So if you don't want to be recorded, please feel free to turn your camera off. We will be spotlighting the speakers. So it should just be those videos that you should see on your screen. Really pleased to be joined today by Ellie Beckett from Oakleaf Enterprises in Guildford and Calda and Sima from Shifa Network, who are going to be speaking in that order. So thanks ever so much in advance. And I think probably if we, Ellie, if you speak first, you can share your slides if that's okay, and then we can take any questions if anyone has any on your project before we move on to the Shifa project afterwards, if that's okay. So I will stop sharing, Ellie, if you want to take over.
Can you see my slides? Does that work?
Thanks.
Perfect. Lovely. Great. So I don't know how many of you know us, but we're a local mental health charity based in Guildford, and today I'm going to sort of talk to you very briefly about who we are and what we do, just so you can have a full understanding of the support that we actually give, and then I'm going to look more specifically into one of the programs that we run. It's a fitness program, so obviously the uniting of mental health and physical activity and all the benefits that I think we actually already know exist, but it's more to kind of tell you about the sort of the pros and cons and the way of trying to roll out something that we have deemed a real success. So so we are, like I said, based in Guildford. We are supporting a number of very, very incredibly vulnerable adults, and we help them to manage their mental health, and we work with them to support them on their journey back into employment. So for us, it's about giving people a sense of purpose, and it goes beyond that. It's about feeling that you are a greater part of your community as well. So I'm going to relate back to that quite a bit throughout this. So I think it's important to understand that if you want to access any of our services, you don't need a formal diagnosis. We find that the sooner that we can access help for someone, the better. So we might have clients who have a form of mild stress and anxiety through to schizophrenia and bipolar. But like I said, the sooner that you can reach help, and the sooner that we can remove the stigma and encourage someone to access the support that they need, we find we have a far greater success rate in helping them at the other end. And there are so many positive outcomes about not restricting people or grouping people into their diagnosis. So we have found at Oakleaf that we've been able to galvanize some amazing relationships where we're mixing people who otherwise perhaps would never have met. So regardless of their mental health condition, their socio-economic existence, it makes such a difference if we're going to form a community and we're going to form a real form of support, basically. So a very brief overview as to what Oakleaf do and how we support these individuals who come through our doors. We offer 3 pillars of support. So we have work-related training. So this is where we're giving people practical work experience. There's lots of team building. You know, people are there to build their confidence and thrive in a working environment. We've actually just launched a Pathways back into employment program. So this is furthering people's skills such as sort of CV writing and interview skills. We then have our wellbeing activities. So there's a huge number of these, both focusing on physical well-being and mental well-being. And these range from support groups, we have the arts, we have fitness programs. We recognize that basically everyone who comes through our doors is an individual. So we know that one size doesn't fit all, and we have to adapt, and we have to create something that is bespoke for every individual. So that's why it's nice to understand these sort of 3 pillars of support, because I meet people and they say, God, you do so much. Why are you offering this and that? Because what could be one person's worst nightmare could really draw out a strength in another person. So we have to make sure that we have enough to support as many people as possible. And then finally, our counselling service. So these are one-to-one counselling sessions, which our clients can access for as little as £5 a session if they're unemployed. So hopefully this has painted a kind of an overview as to who we are. But today, like I mentioned, I'm focusing on the fitness activity, which we've had a huge success with, that was taking place in January, and that's called our Kickstart program. So to give you a sort of a slight course overview, in January, we launched the program. It's a 12-week physical and emotional wellbeing course. We've got a focus on fitness and nutrition. So it's been tailored for 8 participants, and each week they're receiving 1 hour of nutrition support, 1 hour of exercises, and a further 30 minutes of one-to-ones with the personal trainer. So this is to ensure that people are receiving the practical physical support, but also the emotional support that they need to work towards their goal. So speaking of goals, every individual will set a goal at the start of the program. So this might be a weight loss goal. It could be reducing blood sugar levels if someone is diabetic. Or it could just be alleviating any different aches and pains that someone might have, or if they've had a previous injury that they want to work around and make sure that they can get physically fit again. So the program was delivered by our wonderful trainer who's called Leanne, and she has both the nutritional expertise as well as the rigorous fitness program expertise as well. So Leanne was a godsend, and without her, I don't think we'd have been able to really tailor it for every individual who took part. So I'm going to speak you through a few questions now, which I hope will kind of give that full idea of, what were the trials and tribulations of putting this course on. So why did we deliver Kickstart? I mean, we wanted to link the physical and the mental. So obviously, being a mental health charity, there's always going to be a link. But most of our groups are actually very focused on either being physical or either being mental. So whether that's our football team or our yoga classes or Tai Chi, or looking at the mental health side, we have lots of mental health support groups, so confidence courses, NLP, we've got a women's group, we've had an LGBTQ plus support group as well. And we found that Kickstart was a way of really trying to combine these two. So one of the key factors, like I mentioned before, was to create a sense of community and encouragement. So this was really vital in the pandemic. By creating a small subgroup within Oakleaf, we essentially closed the group off post the first session, and we required everyone who took part to have an 80% attendance rate in order to complete it. So we had to ensure that they were feeling the full benefits of 12 weeks and pursuing it together as a group. So if you think this is quite a large commitment, because this is over 3 days a week for 12 weeks. So this is a big commitment from the client, and a big commitment from Oakleaf as well. So how did we develop this idea? So we met back in October, and we had lots of different discussions about how to improve it, because we had run something quite similar about 3 years ago. But one of the big points that we wanted to address was the fact that we found there was a real lack of lasting impact post the course. So everyone became very fit and healthy during the 12 weeks, but then post that time, so about 2 months later, everyone had reverted back to their old ways. So it was really important that we could work towards behavioral change. So that was, for us, our biggest goal. The major development meant that we wanted to structure it around individual goals. So that's where it differed. So in the past, it was a generic, right, we're going to lose weight. So 3 years ago, that was the goal. But we realized that's actually not realistic for every single person who's taking part. So that's why we now had the individual goals. The nutritional support that we had previously, this year, it's become far more scientific. So people that they could really take charge of their nutrition. So participants now have a greater understanding of, what's a carbohydrate? How does it work? What kind of fuel do I need for my body to reach my goal? How does my body react to a certain form of energy? And what do I need to fuel it? So this, in terms of the emotional support to be successful physically, was done through the one-to-ones, which were half an hour every single week. So it was about setting a goal. It was about making sure that this goal was achievable. It was about making sure that you felt supported emotionally to achieve that physical goal. So that really was the reason behind taking it on and how we've adapted it from our previous experiences. So in terms of recruitment, we, like I've said, we support hundreds of individuals across the community. We sent out a mass email, we publicized it on our website, our social media, and we mentioned it to stars. So our recovery stars are our ways of measuring people's progress. So it's really important when we have those one-to-ones with them that might appeal to them. So for anyone who showed interest, we had a follow-up call, and that was just before issuing a medical questionnaire. So we had to ensure that everyone was medically fit and well enough to take part in the program. How did the pandemic affect this rollout? So lockdown, I'm sure many of you in your organizations had to adapt and move everything to Zoom, which we did sort of very quickly off the back of those first few weeks of lockdown kicking in. We had to ensure that everyone had access to a computer and the internet, which was probably one of our biggest battles. We managed to then fund for every individual, so each of the 8 clients taking part, we managed to make sure that they had access to a yoga mat, resistance bands, and a water bottle so that they could take part in all the exercises at home. I think with the next Kickstart program, which we'll be running in September, very much thanks to Active Surrey for funding that, we're actually going to continue with a blended model. So when I say blended, it means that people can pick and choose as to whether they continue working at home. So this could be using your yoga mat, or it could be coming into Oakleaf and taking part in the session live with Leanne that's happening on the premises. So it's as if the group is always together. And we've found this with all of our Oakleaf activities, that for many of them now we're taking a blended model moving forward, because there has to be some pros from the pandemic. So I think the fact that we're realizing that we can actually support more people by having blended models, that's been a real learning curve from the pandemic. And again, the funding for this next course, we will be ensuring that everyone has the equipment, so i.e. the yoga mats, resistance bands, in this next group, because by receiving something physically like that, we found that there's a greater commitment for attendance. And also in terms of people actually following on the program post the 12 weeks and making sure that they take it on board to continue staying fit and well, they need to still be able to access this equipment. It's not hugely costly, but it has a really, really long lasting effect. In terms of the pandemic, one of the sort of hurdles, well, I guess it wasn't a hurdle, but something that we really had to think about was our due diligence for our clients. So in terms of the medical questionnaire that we sent out, it was far more rigorous than we've perhaps ever sent before. For anyone who had anything particularly flagged, and the bar was much lower for this particular flag, i.e. a history of heart problems, diabetes, back, shoulder, neck problems, high blood pressure, severe fatigue, or if someone's awake for a lot of the night, we had to make sure that we got a letter from their GP to confirm that they felt they were well enough to take part in the program, because we obviously weren't physically with them to make sure that they were okay. So we just had to ensure that this questionnaire was rigorous enough to make sure that everyone was supported, and that Leanne felt comfortable with the level that everyone was agreeing to push their bodies to. The client services team have sent me a copy of that questionnaire, so I'm very happy to share that out with the group if that's a useful tool for anyone to use moving forward. So I think the pandemic generally had a huge effect on everyone. I think that feeling of isolation is not new necessarily to someone who struggles with their mental health, but it was certainly exacerbated during the pandemic. 6 out of the 8 clients who took part in the January course were all living alone. So to have 3 days a week where you could speak to someone and interact with someone was huge, and was far greater than what a lot of people were receiving at the time. So this is where, we're talking about really bringing forward a support group, really creating a community. We found that whilst we were running sort of anxiety management groups over Zoom, people weren't necessarily comfortable sharing that across a screen, whereas taking part in something that's physical, people were able to kind of lower their guard. The social barriers that might have existed there previously were far easier to overcome when you're taking part in a shared experience. So I think that's, you know, this model in terms of mental health support it's far less informal, it's far less formal rather, and that environment gives people a reason to form that sense of community far quicker. So what's made this successful? All the clients who took part reached their goals after 12 weeks, and they felt like they've had a long-lasting change. We had someone who lost 3 stone and he's continued to feel better. One of the lines he said, which I really liked, was, my mind felt clearer, I felt physically more awake, but mentally more stable. We had another client who shared with us that this is the longest time that he's actually remained sober. So he'd actually stopped drinking about 3 weeks before the course had started. Now, initially, this had actually been a bit of a concern for our client services team because we weren't quite sure how his body might cope with the program, but obviously it was important that we knew this and we were able to monitor his progress. He continued to remain sober throughout the 12-week course. He's now working with a sponsor and has remained sober ever since. So for us, this isn't just a lifestyle change, it's showing how effective a behavioral change can be for someone. And I think, you know, the biggest success is the fact this group has continued to feel like they're a part of a community. So many of them are now still meeting up. They're going for gym sessions together, or they're going out for walks outside of Oakleaf. So from our perspective, to create something that continues even off premises, off Zoom, is way more than we could possibly imagine. And, you know, it really does show the success of a shared experience, regardless of what their diagnosis is or at what stage they are in terms of their mental health recovery and their journey back into employment or not. Everyone went through this together and they've continued to feel supported throughout. So in terms of any top tips, I think from our perspective, get a great trainer. I think is a really big one. Someone who, when I say a great trainer, it's got to be someone who is relatable, someone who's really adaptable as well. So like I mentioned at the start, everyone who comes through our doors is completely different. And it's these huge differences that a trainer has to adapt to, and all of their varying needs. So, you know, when you work with vulnerable people, you need to ensure that a trainer has signed a confidentiality agreement. They've got to have an activity leader handbook that they work through, which makes sure that they set out all of the boundaries, codes of conduct, client boundaries, safeguarding that they need to be aware of. So when I say have a good trainer, have a good trainer who's good at paperwork as well. That's a really important one, because you just need to make sure that, you know, you're staying on top of it, and that the trainer needs to be just as supported. So we always need to make sure that we've got procedures in place that they feel supported, and therefore the clients feel supported as well. Another thing I'd say is keep in regular contact with the clients. So the client services team told me that we actually had someone who attended for a couple of weeks and then had to stop attending, and no one quite knew why, but thankfully, because we will stay in regular contact with the clients, it turned out that their laptop had broken partway through the course and they were too embarrassed to come forward and try and resolve the issue. And completely understandable, you know, it's quite a big thing to admit to something like that, especially if you're not perhaps feeling particularly confident. So you know, we were able to resolve the issue and it was no problem at all. But that's why just make sure you're obviously in constant contact with your clients as well as the trainer, because sometimes they feel more comfortable speaking to you as an organization as well. So yeah, the main thing is being adaptable. So I think whether it's the resources that you're supplying, having different mediums, some people really enjoy speaking to someone, whereas others might enjoy receiving exercises that are written out or shown in a more visual way. Everyone learns in a really different way, and we just want to make sure that everyone is receiving the full benefit of the 12 weeks. So basically, we just had to be as adaptable as possible to make sure that this was a success. So I'm finally going to stop jabbering on. I have no idea how long I've spoken for, Laurie, but I'm just going to really quickly read to you a testimonial that was written by a lovely chap called Alan, who unfortunately he would have liked to have come today but couldn't make it, but he just wanted me to share this with you, which I think paints a really lovely picture as to the success of the programme. So he said, "I cannot thank Oakleaf for the opportunity to participate in the 12-week Kickstart Nutrition Fitness course with Leanne. I started in January, several pounds overweight with a horrific food intake, at a loss at what to do regarding fitness, and a mental illness that prevented me from doing anything about it. To be provided with a 3-day-a-week course covering nutrition, group fitness, and a one-to-one with a fitness instructor was far more than I ever could have imagined. The commitment that Leanne was giving was nothing beyond the call of duty. Nothing was too much for her, and the encouragement and compassion that was provided made us all feel so special and cared for. What's more, I've made several new friends from it, and we all feel that we've come through something unique and privileged. Personally, I've been encouraged to look at my mind, gut, and body in a completely different way. I've been to many gyms and classes in the years, but at 57, this has to be the most significant change in me. I now look at what I fuel my body with completely differently. The exercise I do is considered, with more stretching and warming up and down than I've ever known. This has made my mind stronger and helped my self-esteem and confidence. I feel I can face the strange world that we live in with a better stride and a smile on my face. A lot has been said about key workers in this pandemic. Leanne is one of those hidden treasures, always a smile on her face, always reassuring, and never forcing you to do anything you're not ready for. Thank you, Oakleaf, and thank you, Leanne, for putting me on the road to recovery. Oh, and I'm 1.5 stone lighter." So that's it. I think I'll leave it at that. I hope this has kind of given you a bit of an overview and hopefully some inspiration to run something similar. Like I said, I can share slides, I can share the medical questionnaire that we used, because we found that really, really helpful. And I hope, I hope you run a course similar to it.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and please pass our thanks on to Alan as well for his testimonial. It really
no
kind of adds to the roundness and completeness of the picture, I think. A thought that occurred to me as you were talking, which I think you probably alluded to a little bit during it, was around kind of peer support and whether how that worked. Because obviously you mentioned that some of the participants are now in touch with each other outside of Oakleaf and are still walking together. Was that something you facilitated, or that they just did themselves?
It's something that they did themselves. So with all of our different support groups, obviously, whether they're meeting up in person or online, or however they're meeting, we will always encourage people to keep in touch with one another, but it's very much left to their own discretion. Obviously, from a safeguarding position, we always stay in contact with everyone and make sure everyone's happy and okay. But yeah, that's very much, I think, something our client services team deals with on a case-by-case basis. From our perspective, though, it's just positive. If anyone was to flag anything to us from a safeguarding perspective, obviously we would intervene if required or needed.
Sure. There's a couple of questions in the chat.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a Zoomophobe.
Colleague Emma from our counterparts in Hampshire said she'd love to try and replicate something like it in Hampshire. So I don't know whether Oakleaf stretched into Hampshire or whether you know other agencies that kind of operate in the sense.
If anyone wants to access our services, we're not fully Surrey-centric. So because we only receive a small amount of government funding, we don't need to stay completely Surrey-focused. So if someone can travel to us, if you had any clients that were based in Hampshire, we're always very happy to receive people if we have space on our courses. But obviously, people need to factor in travel and stuff like that. But with a blended model, it means more people can access things. So it's nice that we have the freedom to access it, for more people to access it. But definitely replicate something. It's worth it.
Carol has asked if you don't mind sharing your email address.
Yeah. So I'll put that in the chat box now. So I deal with all the fundraising for Oakleaf. So that's how I've had contact with Active Surrey in the past. And a lot of what I've explained today has come directly from the client services team. So those are the people who deal with all of our clients on a day-to-day individual basis. So if there are any particularly technical questions, I'm very happy to pass you on to our client services team, who are fab and are so good. So yeah, I will pop my email address into the chat right now.
Brilliant, thank you. And the next program starts in
Yes,
September.
September,
right?
and we've already got a full waiting list for that. So we will be rolling this out for the foreseeable. As long as we can get funding for it, it's happening. It's definitely a positive one. That was the fundraiser and me talking. So
I hear you. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks so much for your time today as well. And I guess any last chance, any more questions for Ellie, just shout out or drop them in the chat box if you'd rather do it that way. So while anyone is thinking of any other questions, Sima, if you wanted to get ready, I know you're not sharing slides, are you? So Sima and Calder, I don't know who's going to talk first. I know you don't have any slides though, so that's fine.
I can begin. I can start with just telling everybody a little bit about Shifa, who we are and what we do. Can I start now or? Okay, so hello everyone.
Sure,
really nice to see you here today, and thank you for inviting us, Laurie. My name's Calder Kusar. I'm the project's administrator for Shifa Network. And my colleague Sima Salman is our community engagement and course coordinator. Shifa Network is an organization, a charity. We're based in Woking, in Maybury in Woking. We've been around for a number of years now. We were started by a local lady who identified a need for local Asian women, somewhere where they could get together and meet and to support each other. Some of these women were suffering from various issues, mental health problems, emotional, perhaps also domestic abuse. And she felt that there was a need. She actually organized a drop-in at the Corner House in Woking. They used to meet regularly every Thursday morning. We still have a drop-in today where women can come, have a cup of tea, take part in craft activities, or just chat if you like. Since Shifa has really grown, we offer a variety of projects and programs to women, not just women in Woking, but across Surrey if you can get to us. We have lifelong learning programs. We offer ESOL courses, driving theory, test practice courses, life in the UK. We've also offered employment programs where women can learn about how to write a CV, a cover letter, apply for jobs. We also have a physical activity program where women can take part in activities such as yoga. We've had walk programs, we've had a cycling project. These are open to women. Most of our courses are free. We work with various local agencies. We've worked with Woking College, local health visitors. Our referrals, you can refer to us in a number of ways. It's self-referral. A lot of them are word of mouth. Also, we have referrals from social workers or NHS. So I hope that's given you a little bit of an idea of who we are. Sima, I'm going to pass you over to my colleague Sima Salman, who's going to tell you a little bit about how the Tackling Inequalities funding has helped Shifa and what we've been doing with it. So I'm going to pass you over to Sima.
Thank you, Calder. I would start, first of all, thanks, Ellie. I'm so glad to know that about the services your organization is providing. So more or less, Shifa is providing the kind of services, but of course, the kind of community we are focusing on mainly that is with the Asian background. So before the COVID-19 pandemic, we were running yoga sessions for women. So these classes were well attended and popular. And then here comes the COVID, here comes the lockdown, and it twisted the lives. There was a challenge. There were challenges for everyone. People were panicked, confused, and everything. And especially for our community, for our ladies, it was even a bigger thing. Since the lockdown, our clients had, the isolation increased, the family system, the big family system they were living in, more mental health issues. So that was quite a lot. And then when it started, all this pandemic thing started, even we were confused that how we gonna help and how we gonna reach these ladies. So first few days we were being really confused, but later on we thought, no, we need to start something, and we should have some courage to start something. So then here comes the technology, which was a big challenge for everyone. We thought of our clients later on. First, we were worried about ourselves, that how we're going to do it. But gradually, we started this technology awareness. We introduced Zoom, and there were so interesting stories that telling up our ladies who had no knowledge, no educational background. They had never used, even the simple apps of mobile. So when we introduced them Zoom, and then every single day we struggled. Every single day. It wasn't a thing that, okay, once it is being done and we are done. No. So whenever we have some sessions, we are struggling for that. So eventually we started one yoga class, and it went so successful that it was well attended. It showed us that there was a demand for for our ladies, for the physical activities. So then we had a long the waiting list for the yoga classes. And then at the right time, when we were really struggling, that was the time, we were being offered the active study funding. It totally changed the the story. It really helped us. The way because we had a long waiting list, and then we started the advertising more, and then we got to know that how many people were in the need of that. In this way we started this thing with the limited resources. When we got the funding, and then just give me a second, please. Sorry.
Just to help this, so the Tackling Inequalities funding, thank you, Saima, allowed us to actually acquire further Zoom subscriptions, it's a mouthful. So because there was such a demand, we were able to acquire further subscriptions and hold, I think, about up to 3 or 4 yoga classes at one time. Yeah. So, and at different times. And as you can imagine, with our clients at home, with children, having to homeschool their children, with extended families, other family members working at home. So there were restraints on our women with regard to their time. So we were able to...
Sorry, Hada. I will just add over here that, we got the wings to fly when, we got this funding. And it wasn't just the thing we are one thing, it was being connected with other things. So what it came out that all together, we were running 4 yoga classes. Out of that, we found out that there was a need of the chair yoga for the the people who are disabled, who are unable to do much exercises. So from there, the chair yoga came in, and then it was just like a it looked like it is a family event. Moms were kids were doing with that. Even the grandparents, they were in that. So even in our one yoga class, there were the 3 generations. They were doing yoga classes with us, and there was some very funny stories as well. That in one home, in one room, mother-in-law is doing and the daughter-in-law is doing with the kids. So there were some of the in the chair yoga. I remember that there was a couple, bless them. In one room, the guy was with his mom, and in the other room, the lady, she was with his mom. So it came as you said, as I said, the family unity. It was like this, and then it was such a success that when our yoga started, the compliments we were getting, they were, I will mention a couple of our pregnant ladies. So there was a lady, I will especially mention her, that she had, it was her 3rd pregnancy, and she said her first 2 kids, they were from C-section, and this yoga really helped her, and that throughout her pregnancy she was, and she was doing yoga, and it was helping her. There was another lady, she had it was her 4th baby, and she said, like, whenever I keep on waiting for the whole week for this yoga session, because what happens that when I'm doing yoga, that it take my stresses away. So in this way, and then next it comes that because the ladies, they were isolated, they were not talking to each other. So the our yoga groups, what they were, the direct connect, they are connecting with the people, so they were doing the social interactions. And then from there we got an idea, okay, which we can start with the same funding, because we had the funding and we had the money. So we thought, let's start our walk group. So that was that was again a very big success. Halda will give you the details about it later on. And they were the ladies who did not get in touch with the technology. He couldn't do it, so we started with that. And then out of that, another thing came out, that we had the partnership working with the Optimist. So that came the idea, okay, the Optimists were coming with us, and we were doing, the walk together. And you won't believe that in this, with this funding, we were supporting 50 to 60 ladies on the weekly basis. We were because we were doing 4 different yoga sessions. We were doing chair yoga, then we were doing the walk groups. So through this all this process and all this funding, it was a big learning from us, that our ladies, their cooperation, their resilience, their adaptability, their passion, it taught us a lot. And then that is our driving force for us to make new projects. So in the future, like definitely in our future projects, we are expanding in other areas, starting with the physical activities. In the past, we did the cycling project. That was a big success. We did swimming in the past. We are going to carry on with that. And an interesting thing that we had our that in about a month before that, we thought about a football group, to create a football group. And we took a couple of introductory classes. Khalda and me were there as well. We are thinking about to do the football. And when our ladies did that football, and you won't believe, we were being so proud of them, that they were not bothered about what they are wearing. They were not bothered how they're looking. They were not bothered that how the confidence, that the physical activities are giving them. That is marvelous. That is unbelievable. That the impact on their as the physical health is improving, and the mental health improving, and it is not impacting on not only them, but for their families as well. So this is what, Khalda, would you like to tell a little bit about our walk project, please?
Yes, so part of the funding that we received, we started a walk program. This was back in August. And on my first day of my walk, I was very eager, very keen. I had one lady that turned up. I wasn't deterred. I thought it's a gorgeous day. We had a walk around. So we decided to meet it. If I just step back a little bit. So one of the things that I had to consider when I was actually designing or putting together my walk program was location. Where do I want to sort of walk with our clients? So it needed to be somewhere that was easily accessible, because some of our clients obviously had mobility problems, or it needed to be within walking distance. So we decided on Goldsworth Park Lake, and it's a really, really lovely setting, lovely. And this was in August, when some of the restrictions were still in place. So logistically, you can imagine Goldsworth Park can get a little bit busy. So on my first day, one lady turned up, but I wasn't deterred. I persevered. And gradually I saw, more and more interest I was getting as our clients and other organizations knew about our walk. More and more clients came along. So I think at the end, I had in total about 10 to 12 people that would regularly come and walk with me. But obviously, because of COVID restrictions, and at times we could only have groups of 6. So they would be between 5 to 6 women that would come along on our walks. And personally, I could see the benefits that being out in nature and walking were having on our clients. There was one particular client that I would have to go to a house and collect every day, every Wednesday when our walk was taking place. So on the first walk, I could see she was a little bit reluctant, not sure, lacking in confidence. She wasn't even ready, but I waited. And every week that I would go, I could see a change. So by the third walk, I could see that she was ready. She had her makeup on, she had a bag ready, and she saw me at the window. She came down and, we went for a walk. And I could see that this lady, she began to notice nature around her. And she was quite isolated, and she wasn't talking. She didn't feel confident enough to communicate. But as we walked, every week she came out of her shell a little bit, and then she would point out wildlife or the ducks to me. And I had this Seroptimist, a local women's organization that would come along on the walks with us. And the idea was that because our women are largely from the South Asian community and English isn't their first language, to encourage them to sort of, improve and use their English language skills. So it was a sort of a walk and a talk. And the Seroptimists would share their knowledge of nature with our women. So for example, one of my clients would, bird on the water, it's a duck, in which case it was a swan. So the Seroptimists would point it out. So it was almost educational. It was really lovely. And I think at the end of it, our walks had to sadly come to an end because of, and we were going into another lockdown in December. But the impact it had on ladies' mental and emotional and even their physical well-being was amazing. And to take part in that was a privilege. And it wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the Tackling Inequalities funding that we received. So thank you, Laurie, for that. And I have our ladies still asking me, when are the walks taking place again? So, we hope to sort of continue again very soon, a summer walk program. So thank you.
Thank you both. That's really great to hear all the different physical activities that you've been able to bring to the ladies, and it's good to hear the growth, I guess, from not being deterred from having a single person turn up on the first week.
Yes.
To grow to obviously the limitations that the lockdown would enable you to at the time. Does anyone have any questions for Simon or Calder about their programs that they've been talking about. I haven't seen if there was anything in the chat. No, I don't think so. Well, obviously we're delighted to have been able to support you with the Tackling Inequalities Fund previously, and we've got another project with you, the cycling project, which we'll be launching at some point in the autumn, which we're quite excited about as well. But I guess just for other people who've dialed in, we're hopeful that there will be further rounds of this Tackling Inequalities Fund from Sport England. So it's a fund that they devolve to Active Surrey as an active partnership, and a number of other national organisations as well. So if you've got projects, if you've been inspired today or in any of our other lunchtime learning webinars, and there's something you want to talk about potentially funding for, do get in touch. And hopefully next financial year, we'll have some more budget available to spend on these sorts of projects. Thank you everyone for your time. And thank you so much to all our speakers today. We will be, thanks Laura for putting my email in there. We will be making a recording available on our website with Ellie with your slides, if that's okay. If you don't mind sending those through to me, I'll PDF those and email them around. So yeah. We'll only email that out to people who've either dialed in today or registered and not been able to dial in, but the YouTube link will go out kind of further and wider than that. Okay, so unless there's any other questions, I think we can draw today to a close and let you go and get some lunch. I'm going to go and do that myself. So thanks again to all our speakers, and thanks everyone for dialing in. It's nice to see you all.